Are you confused by yarn sizes? They can be terribly confusing because things are not the same from manufacturer to manufacturer, and you don't always see the same things on the yarn labels. There's words that you don't know what they mean, like DK or worsted. And there's little pictures of a ball of yarn with numbers on it. What do those numbers mean? And how do they correspond to the name on the yarn? It's all very confusing. So I have a chart on my website at Wise Owl Knits, and I'm going to put that up now so that you can see the differences between the different yarns. Okay, you can see that the little pictures of a skein of yarn have numbers on them. Yarns that are smaller have a lower number than yarns that are bigger. So it starts with size 0, which is the lace weight, and goes on up to size 7, which is a jumbo yarn. It is a really big yarn. You probably will never use it. You may never use lace weight. It isn't used often, but some people really love it. It's a little bit too small for me, so I have not used it very much. As you progress through your knitting journey, you may tend towards smaller yarns, you may tend towards bigger yarns, and that may change as the years go on. Okay, so the number also corresponds with a name of the yarn size. So a size 0 is also a lace weight yarn. Size 1 is fingering or sock weight yarn. So you can use that yarn for other things besides socks, but it is often used for socks. Let's skip to DK weight and worsted. So a DK weight is a size 3 yarn and a worsted weight is a size 4 yarn. And let me just show you some of the overlap between the sizes. I've got a couple of different yarns here that are both labeled as DK. This is a West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. It comes from England. It's 100 grams in this skein of yarn, and it is 245 yards, 225 meters. So if we look at DK weight on the chart, it says DK weight starts at 250 yards. This is 245. So it's slightly under, but still considered a DK weight yarn. Then we've got Southlander DK, and this yarn comes in a 200 gram skein rather than 100 gram. So if we divide that in half, it's got the yardage on here is 400 meters, which is 440 yards. So if we take half of that, it's 220 yards so that we can compare it to what is in the chart. So it's saying worsted weight yarn is between 170 yards and 220 yards. So this actually, according to our chart, would be a worsted weight yarn rather than DK. And it's called DK because that is what the manufacturer chose to call it. This particular manufacturer is in New Zealand, and sometimes different countries kind of use different standards and different ways of naming yarns. Now another yarn, this is a very common yarn, Cascade 220. It is a worsted weight yarn according to the label, and actually it does not say worsted weight yarn on the label. It only says the amount of grams and the yards and meters. But I know it's 220 yards, and I've always considered it a worsted weight yarn. It's exactly the same weight as this DK weight yarn. So there's overlap between the different sizes, and basically the takeaway is you need to compare the yardage on the label to what's on the chart, to what's suggested in the pattern that you're using. If they're using a particular yarn, calling for a particular yarn in the pattern and they call it DK weight, it will tell you what yarn they used, and you can compare that yardage to what's on your ball band to give you a good indication as to whether that yarn would work or not in that pattern. So there is some thinking that you have to do and comparing that you have to do before you know if a particular yarn will work in a particular pattern. And part of that comparison is knitting yourself a swatch that is large enough that you can measure and determine how many stitches per inch and how many stitches per 4 inches that you are getting with that particular yarn. Now there's also needle sizes that are suggested in the chart and on the ball bands. So that doesn't mean that you can only use that size needle on that size yarn. It's a suggestion, a place to get started, but you're always going to need a swatch to see if you might need to go up or down a needle size. Some of us are very tight knitters, some of us are very loose knitters. I know people that constantly, because they're very tight knitters, they normally will go up 2 needle sizes than what a pattern suggests. And the suggestions on the pattern are dependent on the person that designed the pattern. So if the person that designed it is a really loose knitter, then she will probably be using a smaller size needle than maybe you do if you're a very tight knitter. So there's always going to be some fluctuation. Everything is just a suggestion, but it depends on how many stitches per inch you are actually getting with a particular needle size. And you might have to try knitting a swatch in several different needle sizes to know what combination of needle sizes and yarn will work in that pattern for you as a knitter. You may be more confused now, but what I would suggest is if you want to knit a particular pattern and it's got a gauge and a yarn suggestion, look at the labels on the yarn that you want to use and see how it compares yardage wise and weight wise, stitches per inch wise, than what is on the pattern. Another good suggestion is print yourself off a copy of this chart. It's on my website and I'll have a link below. And that way when you're yarn shopping, you can look at that and kind of use it to help you compare the yarn you want to use to what's on the pattern, and just maybe clarify in your mind how many yards are usually on a skein of DK weight yarn, or how many yards are usually on a skein of fingering weight yarn. And so even if the yarn doesn't say it's fingering or it's sport, you can look at the yardage and give yourself an idea of what size range that particular yarn falls into. If you like what you learned today, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell to get notified when I have new tutorials that come out.